Welcome back, everyone, to Season 3, Episode 6 of the Inside the Woods podcast, a Valley News show where every week we will give an inside look at Dartmouth Big Green football as they make their way through the 2025 season. I'm your host, Mike Coughlin.
Here's the snap. The kick is up, and the kick is good! Dartmouth does it again! Jubilation on homecoming, the Big Green. Win over Yale late in another comeback. 17-16, Dartmouth's victorious.
Ice water in his veins.
That's how it sounded on the Dartmouth radio broadcast when junior kicker Owen Zalk booted the game-winning field goal from 51 yards out to lift Dartmouth over Yale, 17-16 at Saturday's homecoming game. Zalk battled back from two misses earlier in the game and delivered when it mattered most, much to the delight of his teammates and the Dartmouth faithful. Junior quarterback Grayson Saunier led the team in rushing with 95 yards, scored twice in the process while leading two fourth-quarter touchdown drives. Defensively, senior linebacker Nico Schweikel led Dartmouth with 12 tackles, and senior defensive back Sean Williams had a clutch fourth-quarter interception to help fuel the comeback. Coach McCorkle's squad is now 3-1 overall and 1-1 in the Ivy League. The Big Green will take a detour from conference play and travel to the Bronx on Saturday, where we'll face off with Fordham at 1 p.m. The Rams sit at 1-5 and enter Saturday's game coming off a bye. They last played 2 weeks ago and suffered a 24-10 loss to Lafayette. Saturday's game will be the second half of a home and away series with the Rams. Last year, Dartmouth picked up a 45-13 win at home. Before that, these two programs had not faced one another since October of 1997. Dartmouth has only dropped one game in its 6 previous matchups against Fordham. That occurred in 1951, when the Big Green lost 14-6. This week, I have the Big Green's Director of Recruiting, Danny O'Day, on the show to hear about his process of filling out an Ivy League football roster. And, of course, we have Dartmouth head coach Sammy McCorkle on the show as well to get his thoughts on his team's walk-off win in this weekend's matchup with Fordham. Now let's get into the rest of the show. Joining the podcast is the Big Green's Director of Recruiting, Danny O'Day. Danny has been with Dartmouth since 2015 and has worn multiple hats, having coached in all 3 phases of the game as well over the years. Hey, Danny, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
So first, as the Director of Recruiting, could you give listeners an idea of what your role is like? What is a typical day or week like for you in your position, and maybe how does that differ from being in season versus the off season?
So I think at Dartmouth, we are all in it together. So I'd say that a work week in season and a work week out of season, if you're a coach or if you're support personnel, is nonstop. We get after it. We have a lot of fun in the office, and it's a lot of hours, but they're fruitful hours, and everybody's working together kind of for the common goal. So recruiting does have a little bit of a different timetable than the coaching, but I think everything seems to be very fluid, definitely within our calendars. We've moved recruiting earlier, as that's been the case kind of across the board within college recruiting. We've moved our process up. So there's kind of a focus during May and June. I'd say a little bit more than in season, but there's still a tremendous amount to do within season, both game visits, unofficial visits, official visits that happen within season as well. So it's very fluid, I'd say, just as a coach is very fluid. The coach's big time is in the season, but it's not like they ever really kind of come off the gas after that either. So they have spring and they have summer camps. So just like that with recruiting, we get after it year round as well.
Right. And, obviously NIL is a major part of college football. The Ivy League differs from that, in other conferences, since it doesn't participate in revenue sharing or pay its players directly. how do you go about finding talented football players from across the country, who are willing to come to an institution like Dartmouth that's not offering the money other schools might be offering, and on top of that has, rigorous academic demands?
Mike, I think that's a great question, but I think that if you kind of step back from that question, and then if you expect young football players to make quality decisions, hopefully they have a great support network next to them. But if they were going to make a quality decision, to be honest with you, I actually think the Ivy League in Dartmouth is a much better decision if you're going to be a business person. Because ultimately the educational degree at Dartmouth and within the Ivy League and the network is going to create a situation where you're going to be paid continuously throughout your whole life. We like to say it's like an ATM machine for the rest of your life. Whereas an NIL is a one-time payment for these guys, and hopefully they do right by themselves and invest it wisely and not just kind of foolishly spend it, because ultimately that ends. That NIL will end, and sometimes it'll end a lot quicker than a kid might actually expect it to. Whereas I always talk to our recruits is, listen, you're betting on yourself here, right? Now, yes, we're not going to have that kind of NIL splash headline, right? But you're going to get a reward from this path that's much longer, that's much better, that's much more stable than just kind of quote unquote getting an NIL handout. This is going to be something that you're able to, create a life out of. And, to be honest, and I talk a little bit more with the parents of kind of going down this route, is it may be an investment, right? Because of the non-scholarship situation and it's a need-based financial aid. So there may be some level of investment, but the return on that investment is unlike anything I've ever seen or experienced with all of my experience, right? In the sense that a young man who decides to come to Dartmouth, right, will, on average, and these numbers are even out there, will make about $4 million or so more than somebody who takes a scholarship. And, those things are kind of eye-popping when you really look at it. Sometimes you can't really see the forest through the NIL payment, right?
Right.
But if you really step back and you look at it, and that's why I say I talk with parents about it, the financial decision and the idea of betting on yourself, you're going to bet and no one's going to take your education away from you. This is a much better route.
Right. And, obvious part of recruiting is being able to project what a 17 or 18-year-old athlete will look like at, 21 or 22. We see across the Big Green roster players, who have prepared as underclassmen to get their shot at the top of the depth chart, as juniors or seniors. I'm sure even you're surprised to see which players turn out to have the best careers. What are some of the keys to successfully projecting which players will end up as successful FCS football players, 4 or 5 years down the line?
Well, that's a great question, and if you have that answer, please give it to me. But I'd say ultimately what we're really looking for and looking to enhance within our process is who we are, who fits Dartmouth, who is going to thrive and excel within what we are, and I think Coach McCorkle has created a tremendous, obviously, foundation and program, right? But we know who we are. And I think that's the most important part of what he's created. And we're not looking to be something else, right? We're gonna be what we expect. Now, taking that, I think you have to know who you are before you go get the people who you're going to become. And we want to find those types of individuals who fit with what we are, and now, how do you do that? I think you look at your past, and we're analytically looking at a lot of different aspects of recruiting and time frame of recruiting, and saying, okay, well, if these are the things that catch us up, or these are the things that delay us, or these are the things that work well. And we're going to enhance the aspects of our recruiting that have been very positive to us, and we're going to look to trim some of those aspects of recruiting that have not worked very well. And we've done that analytically within the process over the course of my 2 years doing it, or my 18 months or so doing it. And I think I'm learning, and all of our coaches and our whole program is learning the ebbs and flows of a faster system, but also a more refined system. So I would say, it's not an exact science. If it was an exact science, you would see, all of the schools doing exactly the same thing. It's not an exact science. I think if you look over the course of years within programs, you're going to see 50 to 70 or so percent positive snaps, like really fruitful snaps from a recruit from 5 years prior, and those numbers you obviously try to enhance, just like you try to enhance your third down percentage, right? Or you try to enhance your fourth down percentage. And if you can move that needle 5% or 10%, you're going to create a much more fruitful recruiting situation, obviously, as well as what gets on the field too. So.
Right, and I just have one more for you, Danny. For young student athletes that are interested in being recruited, and their families, what advice do you have about approaching the recruiting process?
Well, we could have a whole podcast on this, Mike. To be honest with you, and it's. I always say to families that come in, it's not about me whatsoever. It's about their kid, and it's about their process that kind of coalesces with our process. But ultimately, my experiences have been as a high school head coach and as a college assistant coach, and now a college director of recruiting, right? There's been a lot of experiences that I've learned tremendously from. I think one of those things that I've learned over my 11 seasons here in Dartmouth is, first and foremost, that high school student athlete, he should really enjoy his high school experience. He should play lots of sports. He shouldn't just play one sport. Playing multiple sports enhances the ability within, say, football, to deal with different circumstances and situations. They'll be better on a football field because they played hockey. They'll be better on a football field because they played baseball or lacrosse or basketball. They need to continue to play as many sports as they possibly can and have those types of experiences, ones where you win, ones where you lose, ones where you grow, and you reflect on it, and within that high school experience. Now, they also need to do well in the classroom, because that's going to create opportunities as well. And obviously, you're talking to Dartmouth right now. That level of opportunity is available to those, or more, a higher level of opportunity is available to those who do better in school, right? So the reality of it, and I that's all a precursor. The reality of it is we're looking at in the 2026 class, 32,000 names in our database, right? And we have 110 or so people on our roster, right? So you can do the math to what we get down to per year, right? From 32,000. And that's why I say they really have to enjoy their high school experience, because there's going to be a funneling down, and that funneling down is there's a place to play for every single high school athlete, right? But, Danny O'Day probably wanted to play at Notre Dame, right? But Notre Dame didn't like me. I stunk, right? So, you have to look at all of your options, and they're all phenomenal options. Now, obviously, I think Dartmouth is the best of the best within that option because it doesn't compromise on anything. It doesn't compromise on your academics, right? And it doesn't compromise on winning championship football, right? And then it doesn't compromise, and this is especially what's super important to me, is it doesn't compromise on the rest of your life, on what and how you interact for the rest of your life. Now, so I'd say that's a gold standard. Everything is on offer at Dartmouth, right? But to get to that funneling process, there's a lot to get there. Now, I think that those high school students and those high school athletes, they need to expose themselves to a lot of failure, right, and perseverance, because they're going to be told no many more times than they're told yes.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Danny. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. And again, thank you very much for coming on.
Okay. I really appreciate it, Mike. And thanks for doing this. This is fantastic.
Before our interview with Sammy, let's take a closer look at Saturday's matchup between the Big Green and the Rams. On paper, it seems like Dartmouth should roll to a victory on Saturday. Fordham is in the basement of FCS rankings in both scoring offense and defense. The Rams allow a little more than 40 points a game on average and only put up about 19. They also struggle with the turnover battle with an overall turnover margin of -4. This all sounds great if you're a Dartmouth football fan, right? Well, don't get too comfortable. This has all the makings of a dreaded trap game. While the Rams struggle in some areas, they are among the top 25 least penalized teams in the country, averaging just about 5 flags a game. They also boast the 26th ranked passing offense in the nation, averaging 253 yards per game and 9 touchdowns through the air on the season. And the Big Green have been susceptible to teams that can throw the ball around. They are ranked just 61st in passing yards allowed, giving up around 213 yards through the air per game. So Fordham could have a chance if the Big Green looks past what the numbers would suggest is an inferior opponent. However, if Dartmouth, which is 29th in total offense, averaging over 412 yards per game, and has a defense that is only allowing 25 points per game on average, plays to its potential, things could get dark for the Rams. Ultimately, numbers only tell part of the story. That's why the games are played on a field rather than paper. So let's hear from Sammy to hear how his team is approaching Saturday's matchup. With me now for his usual spot on the podcast is Big Green head coach Sammy McCorkle, whose team picked up its 3rd win of the season in dramatic fashion on Saturday. Hey, Sammy, thanks for coming on again.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me, bud.
So congratulations on the victory, Coach. It was tough sailing offensively for both squads in the first half. And then in an echo of last year's big comeback at the Yale Bowl, your team stepped up in the fourth quarter. The key drive was 11 plays and 92 yards and seemed to get you guys back on track. What was the message to the team between the third and fourth quarter? And, what were the keys to success?
Well, I think the main message was just stay the course, keep doing what we're doing. We felt like, through 3 quarters, we offensively, we felt like we were moving the ball. We just gotta finish. And that was a big thing that we wanted to make sure everybody understood was, hey man, keep doing what you're doing. Let's put ourselves down there in the situation. Let's just close the deal when we're down there. And I thought our offense did that. Obviously, a couple touchdowns there, and then allowing ourselves an opportunity there with 37 seconds to work ourselves down the field and put Owen in a situation to close the deal for us. But I think the biggest thing was just keeping our poise and just to continue what we're doing and stay to the script and keep playing hard, and that's what our guys did.
Right, and we obviously, can't talk about last week's win without talking about junior kicker Owen Zelk. Field goals have been inconsistent this season, including earlier in the game against Yale. But, with the game on his foot, he executed. What were you thinking as you watched that kick go through?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he'd love to have those first two back, but the first one, it was a tough angle. And then in the second one he missed. I mean, he had the leg, he had the distance, he just pushed it right just a tad. So I knew if we could just get him down there in that range again and just, center that ball for him, that he was going to split it. And, as soon as you could hear it, and as soon as he kicked it, I knew once it came off his foot, it was going to be good. So, and just happy for him. And he showed resilience. He showed some mental toughness for sure. And he did a good job of, after missing the first two, he just wiped it, forgot about it, moved on, learned from it. And you could just tell looking on the sideline, he was confident. He was ready to come out there and kick that and win it for us like he's done in the past multiple times.
Right, and now you guys have played two hard-fought Ivy League games, and, you've got Columbia at home under the lights Friday, October 24th, but this weekend you finish off the non-conference schedule against Fordham in the Bronx. The Rams have had a tough start to the season. They're 1-5. Your team are heavy favorites going in. How does your staff ensure the team ignores that record and prepares with the same intensity they would for a league game?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's worrying about us. It's about us preparing ourselves. You want to have an idea what an opponent does, but that's not the focus week in and week out for us. It's all about going 1-0. And regardless who that opponent is, you've got to prepare yourself to play your best. And that's been our message all year, and that'll be our message this week. You can't let their record can be very deceiving, very deceiving. They're a very talented football team on both sides of the football. And if you look at their games now, especially the last 3-4 games, those games are, through the third quarter are close games. And for some reason or whatnot, the games kind of got a little out of hand at the end. But they're a very talented football team, and we've got to prepare ourselves for a battle down there in New York.
Right, and, in the Rams' last game they played in the loss to Lafayette, they threw the ball 45 times. They've only thrown the ball under 30 times once. Yale threw the ball 32 times against you guys, this past weekend. You guys, unfortunately weren't able to, pick up any sacks. How do you defend against, this sort of aerial attack on Saturday and hope to generate more pressure on the quarterback?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you got to do what works best for you. You got to put yourself, coverage-wise, pressure-wise, whatever you decide to do. We just got to make sure we're in the right spots. Gunnar Smith is a very talented quarterback. He has he has a strong arm, he has a live arm, and he can thread a needle. And they spread the ball around a lot. They've got about 6 guys with double-digit catches. So, that's going to be the big challenge for us is, making sure that, we try to use him as much as we possibly can. And but we've got to make sure that at the same time, have our guys in the right spot and put pressure on him. We can't allow him to sit back there all day and just pick and choose where he wants to go with the ball. So we got to continue to make sure we put our guys in a position to go make plays.
Right, and then finally, other than shutting down the Fordham passing game, what are some of the other keys you guys have to ensure that you guys come away with a victory on Saturday?
Well, I think we got to take care of the ball offensively, and we got to create turnovers. And, we can't allow them to have big plays. Our defense has to be very disciplined. We got to make them earn and work for everything. And then, obviously we got to be balanced on offense. We don't want to become one-dimensional. And then that, defensively for us, we got to try to do our best to make them one-dimensional. So that's going to be the biggest thing is just making sure we take care of the football and create turnovers and put ourselves in a situation where we can capitalize on opportunities that we have.
All right. As always, thanks for joining, Sammy. I appreciate it, and I wish you guys luck this weekend.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you so much for having me.
And that was Season 3, Episode 6 of the Inside the Woods podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week with the fallout from Saturday's matchup with Fordham and a preview of the Big Green's nationally televised Week 6 Friday Night Lights matchup with visiting Columbia. If you have a question for Sammy, email sports@v, as in Valley, news.com. That's sports@vnews.com. Emails there will give you the chance to have Coach answer your question on the next podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.